I think one of the greatest tensions that I saw in that video is exclusivity of Christ. People want a little bit of everything, not sell out completely to anything.
Well, the question comes and says, is African spirituality, bad? What does the Bible have to say about this? And of course, then this conflict, there's so many issues that are covered within what we call African spirituality. I make the point that biblical faith is incompatible with ancestralism. Why do I say so? Again, I'm speaking as an insider, but you can make this case both from an ancestralism side as well as from a Bible side. Biblically speaking, they're incompatible because, you read scriptures like Deuteronomy 18 verse 11. God explicitly forbids interpreting omens or the consultation of spiritists or mediums or those who call on the dead. The living should not be calling on the dead.
I'm actually initiated to Maya, and I'm a balera. There's an attachment, and there's a saying in our practice in Lukumi. If the dead don't give you permission to initiate, you cannot initiate. So you have to get permission. I have to get permission from my father, who passed Ibaye. I have to get permission from all of these people in order to even make Ocha.
What's Ocha?
Ocha is when you make Santo or when you crown. So it's very dependent on our ancestors, because that's how we progress.
There, as in Isaiah 18 verse 9, God is holding his people to account, and one of the strongest rebukes there is why should the living call on the dead or look to the dead on behalf of the living? Should not my people look to their God? And you see a God who wants an exclusive relationship with his people, those who are called his people.
I get very uncomfortable with deciding that Jesus is, I believe in Jesus, I pray to Jesus. I get very uncomfortable, however, in deciding that Jesus is the end all be all. And my ancestors are so harmful to me that Jesus is the only way that I can get away from them. When I know that if they loved me in life, how could they harm me in the past life? When the Christianity forces you to only have one side, it makes you wonder, is it really a religion that you want to continue in? Is it a religion of love and faith that we are, have been told? Or is it the tool that it has been used for thousands of years?
Biblically speaking, the relationship where you look towards, somebody with that level of trust, that level of dependency, that level where you're saying, tell me what to do. You order your life according to their will, basically. You can make a case that actually that's a worship kind of relationship. That relationship is meant to be a worship relationship with God. Ancestralism, God delegates the relationship that he has with people to the ancestors. Power and relationship is delegated there. In some African communities, God is considered a king who's so far away that, how dare you just walk into the courts of the king? You need somebody to mediate for you, somebody who of us lives at least in proximity with the courts of the king. And that leads obviously to the point about the exclusive place of Jesus Christ, that in 1 Timothy 2:5, for instance, that there's only one God and one mediator between God and man, and that's Jesus Christ. And that, I think, will cut at the core of a lot of assumptions that come from what you call ancestralism, because the role that ancestors or spirits have come before us, that the role that they play is very much comparable to the role that in the biblical framework is only reserved for Jesus Christ. There's hardly a discussion around these salient points that, listen, you're more than welcome to choose and say, I'm rejecting this aspect of Christianity as framed by this scripture, this biblical data, and so forth. You as long as you're honest in that's what you're doing, you're rejecting aspects of Christianity and you're choosing a certain other aspect. If we can make these points talk to each other, this is what the scriptural data is. Yes, we need to sometimes do a bit of polishing because some of these scriptures are interpreted not from our context, and so often they're not contextualized, but we can know what scripture says. We can actually apply it very confidently in our cultures, and that's what we've been doing for most part. But we then have to say, you have to realize and be honest. you're now choosing and making up your own religion. This is no longer biblical Christianity. That's what the theological reflection would do. So by all means, it's important that we reclaim that which has been lost in an unjust process. Something that many of us wrestle with is how to understand our African identity, and depending on where you are, I guess, that whatever identity in relationship to Christianity, because we understand that it's God's idea, really, that that the world should be populated with teeming diversity. That's God's plan. That was God's intention all along when He gave this cultural mandate. So where that has been unjustly disrupted, where there's been an erasure, I guess, of critical and important knowledge systems which can express God and worship to God in a meaningful and powerful way, then we've got to do that. And I think it's an important work to do it. And so I would say to people who are really struggling, embracing African spirituality as an alternative to the wrongs, I'm saying, before you do that, look at the person of Christ, who, by the way, has always been present in our cultural histories. If we can get past the fact that He exists beyond the erasure of those who were prejudiced towards African people, who erased Him from our histories, who treated our histories unjustly, that there's a reality in which Christ still existed beyond the injustice or the unjust acts. And even though we might not be able to fully recover that portrait, well, He's still there now for us to do so, if we would be able to reclaim Him, if we were able to embrace Him. So this is an opportunity to embrace the real Christ and reclaim Him. So that's the work we should be doing, to say, will the real Christ stand up, who understands our narratives, who understands our longings, as I say, our aspirations, who understand our pain and our struggles when we think about history, identity, belonging, questions. But He doesn't only come just to say He understands, but He completes our narratives and invites us to something better, something bigger, something that we are really truly longing for. Jesus Christ is there to satisfy our cultural longings too, but in a way that is redeemed, in a way that they were meant to be, in a way that they were meant to reflect worship to Him. He's the only one who can give us this template. Otherwise, what we have is a way in which we identify what's wrong, but we don't know how to place it within the scheme. We don't know where to place our laments. And not only that, when we don't know what to do with it, Christ answers both questions.